Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Big Questions, Small Steps. My name is Amanda and I'm so glad that you could join me today. With this video, we have reached 100 videos since starting Big Questions, Small Steps. So, in honor of that, we have a new setup. Let me know if you like it. Still trying to tweak a few things, figure out exactly what works best for us, but a momentous occasion indeed, so we have some changes in store for us. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about doubts. Doubts that I've experienced with this channel, doubts that I had when I was in Christianity, doubts that I had about Islam when I was dating a Muslim guy, and even doubts that I had about Judaism when I started dating my amazing boyfriend. Doubts are just an ever-present kind of thing. So it's only natural that you experience doubts in your life. So come along with me and let's dive into doubts. As I said, doubts are those little intrusive thoughts that can either make you question what you're doing or question what's around you. When I started this channel, for example, I had doubts that anyone would pay attention to what I had to say. I had doubts that anyone would share similarities with me as far as what they're experiencing and questions that they have. I continue to have doubts. I sometimes doubt myself that, okay, maybe I should change this or I should change this to make this presentation better or to make a better decision for my life, for my family, for my friends. There are doubts in our lives all the time. Now, specifically, we're going to be talking about doubts regarding religion today. And as many of you know, I began my life in Christianity. I was part of the Christian Protestant movement known as the United Church of Christ. It's a really it's relatively new movement. It was basically formed because a bunch of different denominations merged together. So the earliest I remember having doubts, the earliest was at 8 years old. I can remember being 8 years old and it was around Christmas time, and trying to wrap my head around the idea that God is everywhere all at once. And as 8-year-old Amanda was struggling with that, all I could connect with was, okay, well, Santa is kind of magical and he can't be everywhere at once. So how can God? It didn't make sense to me. Now, again, 8-year-old thinking is different than 41-year-old thinking, but it definitely was a case of I was trying to put humanistic qualities on God, and God is beyond all qualities. So that was my first doubt that I can recall. The next time I recall experiencing doubt when I was in Christianity at a young age was when I was in 5th grade. I was in 5th grade, and I remember my teacher at that time was talking about how God knows every thought in your head, even before you express it. And God knows every hair on your head. And that didn't make any sense to me. Why would God, in his infinite wisdom, take time to know how many hairs are on my head. Why would he care? Why does it matter? I had doubts that she was making things up, that she was making things into a bigger deal, and God really didn't care about it, but it was a way to make me be kind of in awe or nervous about what he might think. I remember very early on feeling that. The next time I remember having doubts was when it was Easter time. Now, in the Christian tradition, both Christmas and Easter are very big deals, very big deals. And I started doubting this idea that this loving God that I've learned so much about, how could he really give up his only son? Why would he give up his only son? If he's so loving, surely there was some other way that he could have gotten his point across. He didn't need to kill Jesus in the process. It didn't make sense to me. It seemed uncharacteristic of the God that I knew. Okay? Now, as I grew older and I had more doubts, those were just a couple of the doubts I had, by the way. As I grew older, my understanding grew, and I had different types of doubts. I became acutely aware in the Christian movement of, during services, how frequently we were talking about, singing about, or praying to Jesus. God seemed to have disappeared in the worship services, and that bothered me to no end. I had doubts that we didn't really know this Jesus person as well as we think we did. I thought, there's no way that one person could have done all these things, these miracles that they claim that Jesus did. What if it was a bunch of people who did small things, and those small things were elaborated and exaggerated and made to be bigger deals than they actually were? What if? I had doubts in Jesus as God's son. Something didn't sit right for me about him. It just seemed too easy for me. It seemed too easy for this man to come and be God on earth. Now, I know that there's struggles that Jesus faced according to the New Testament. I know that things weren't easy. I can imagine that there were lots of trials and tribulations. But the whole idea that God chose a son to come to earth as his representative, and then God allows this son to die for the sins of the entire world so that everyone can be freed, it didn't make sense to me. And it still doesn't make sense to me, to be honest. I had doubts about Jesus, about his divinity, about why it really bothered me, in case you couldn't tell. It really bothered me how much we were singing and praying and talking about Jesus and not focusing, acknowledging the awesomeness that is God. It bothered me a great deal. I had doubts in Jesus, and they didn't acknowledge it. They pretty much just said, if you're having doubts, then you just need to believe more. You just need to have faith. And that was not comforting. that made me feel like there was something wrong with me. So I felt very accused and very judged. And that isn't the God that I know. That wasn't the God that I knew at that time either. I started to have more doubts about Christianity the more people would judge and question if I had questions. I have lots of questions, as you know, because I've had this channel for a little while. I've had lots of questions, and as I brought up more questions and I tried to find answers, and there were no solid answers that I could find, I got more frustrated. But what was really frustrating for me was when I reached out for answers, for direction, and I was basically made to feel like there was something wrong with me, that I was even having these questions in the first place. That just raised more doubts. As my amazing boyfriend says, the truth doesn't mind being questioned, but it definitely minded being questioned when I was in Christianity. For me, my experience, not saying anything for anybody else's experience, but for mine, there was a lot of judgment that I was experiencing, and all that judgment just led to more doubts on my end. Now, as I grew older and I taught different classes and I was trying to connect the students to the material in different ways, I tried my darndest to make it relevant, to make it connect and make it all make sense for the students. I don't have all the answers, but I'm learning, and I like to learn. So as I ventured out of the world of Christianity, I was kind of still in it, but I was trying to distance myself. I happened to start dating a man who I believe was Muslim. He never admitted to being Muslim. As a matter of fact, this gentleman in particular said that all religions are stupid. And I started learning a little bit more about the Islamic faith. I knew a little bit before dating him, and I learned more as I was dating him. And I just added to the doubts. I had doubts in Islam as the main faith because, and again, I have not studied Islam. It's just my experience. I had doubts because everything seemed so secretive. When I went and visited a mosque, they would tell me some things, but some things they wouldn't/couldn't explain. It seemed weird that they were so secretive. I didn't understand why they were so secretive. If this was the way to live, why were they hiding it? What was I missing? What was wrong with me that they wouldn't tell me? I struggled with that. I didn't understand, but then when I countered that, it also made me wonder, okay, well, but why? Why? Why are they keeping this a secret? Why will they not share this information with me? I wanted to know more. Also, while dating that gentleman, watching the way he treated his daughters, watching the way he treated myself, paying attention to other relationships, there were some men in the Muslim faith that were very respectful of their wife, of their children, but there were also many who were rather domineering, and the children and the wives were just essentially servants to be at their will. And I experienced a portion of that when I was dating that gentleman, and that wasn't for me. Again, the God I know is a loving God, and that was not love. That didn't feel right to me. That had huge questions for me. Why would someone be subjected to that or need to be subjected to that in order to find the true God? Why would someone need to be punished like that? What made men so much better than women? That they had all this power, but women were insignificant. They were a dime a dozen. It didn't make sense to me, and it made continual doubts arise. Now, as I learned and I grew, I learned a little bit more about Islam, and that only added to my doubts. When I learned more about Muhammad, who is the main prophet of Islam, how he interacted with others, his choices, the fact that he was illiterate, yet he wrote this entire book called the Quran. This idea that he married children that were under 10. I didn't agree with that. I personally don't agree with having multiple wives. That's not for me. If that's for you, then I'm not judging. It's just not for me. I didn't feel like Muhammad, with all these little things in his past, I didn't think that that was the true messenger, the voice of God in our times. It didn't make sense to me. It just made me question him. And the more I questioned, the more I thought to myself, who is putting him up to this? Who is starting this? Who is the puppet behind the stage that's organizing and orchestrating all this? It seemed very showmanship oriented. And that's not what I believe about God. God is not about the show. God is about the doing. God is about the act. So again, I had doubts. So I happened to meet my amazing boyfriend, and he started teaching me about Judaism. And Judaism, the biggest shift by far. In Christianity, a majority of the things are based on how you feel and what you believe, and it's very intangible, okay? In Judaism, on the contrary side, is very much fact-based. They don't believe something, they know something. They know what happened here, they know their years, they know their people, they know, and it's fact-based. Now, again, I've come from a long line of questioning, right? So I came into Judaism, and the first thing that I had doubts or skepticism about was at Mount Sinai, when all these people apparently were supposed to hear the word of God. I was like, that seems like a really nice story. And I'm sure it gives a lot of people a lot of energy to join Judaism. But how do you know? How do you know that that really happened? How can you prove that that happened? And my amazing boyfriend was able to kind of help me guide me through that situation, and understanding that they know this happened because it's documented and multiple sources have said the exact same thing. Okay, that's enough to prove that doubt has kind of been erased or acknowledged. Now, I still can't quite fathom it in my head, but I know it happened. Does that make sense? I still can't wrap my mind around 500 people hearing the voice of God, because I can't imagine hearing the voice of God even for one person. So the concept of having 500 or 5,000 people hear it, mind blown. Okay. The next thing that I started questioning in Judaism was the concept of that the Jewish people are the chosen ones. And part of me doubting that was a bit of heart searching. In Christianity growing up, we focused on that God is the God of all, and people just relate to them in different ways. And to understand the Jewish tradition and understand why they are the chosen ones made me, as a Christian at the time, feel like I was less than and I wasn't loved enough by God, and that like I was an outsider yet again. And that didn't sit right with me. It made me feel unwanted and it made me feel unloved. And again, that clashed because that's not the God I know. That's not the God that I connect with. So I really had to kind of do some heart searching about that and trying to figure out that just because this group of people were the chosen ones and they have proven that over time doesn't mean that I am less than. It means that he loves me differently. Now, my goal is to eventually finish my conversion, and I will be one of those chosen ones because I believe in my heart I am a chosen one. I want to call myself fully a member of the tribe. I'm not there yet. I'm still on my journey. But it took me a while to realize and accept that just because I'm not there doesn't mean that I'm not worthy. It had a lot more to do with me doubting myself than me doubting God and his relationship with the Jewish people. That was me. Now, every person is going to face doubts. And if you are on a religious journey trying to figure out where you need to be, you're going to face doubts. And the only way to acknowledge and move past these doubts is to realize where your doubt stems from. And it takes a lot of soul searching. It takes a lot of reflecting and figuring out, what exactly are you afraid of? What are you pushing back? What are you missing? For me, a lot of what I was missing in my doubts was it wasn't making sense to me mentally. So I had to more fully understand their story, understand their actions, understand their culture to figure out that point. If I couldn't figure out that point, then that was just another check in the box that that's not for me. Once I could mentally figure out which way was up, if you want to call it that, then I needed to figure out, how important is this for me? If this is something of extreme importance, then it moves higher up on your priority list. You need to find what's right for you. You're going to have doubts. You're going to have doubts in yourself. You're going to have doubts in whether your coworker is actually going to finish and follow through on their side of the presentation. You're going to have doubts in, why are we doing this holiday? Or do I really believe what I'm reading? Take a moment. Think about it. Trust your knowledge. Look for your weaknesses. And then decide your next step. If you don't do this first two, then you're not going to go anywhere. It's not easy, but it's worth it. So, that's my insights to share regarding doubts. The more you know, the more you grow. I hope you liked today's presentation. If you did, would you kindly like, and you could do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button. That'd be just amazing. It'd make me feel all kinds of pride. I hope you like the new setup. I enjoy it. A few tweaks still to come, I'm sure, but every step's a good step. So until the next time, take care. Bye.